Hi,
Hi.
how are you?
Good.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So we'll just wait a couple minutes for everyone to kind of come on and then we'll get started. And I have your questions with me too. And I really like them, so I think I'm gonna ask pretty much all of them.
Oh, okay, yeah. I just gave them in case you wanted like ideas of some stuff that we've talked about.
Yeah, no, it's perfect. I love them. They're great questions. All right, let's give it 1 minute and then we'll go.
Angela's learning about Instagram Live today.
Yeah, she'll be someone that's on with our group one, right? For
I think so.
unicorn.
Yeah, and Angela will probably wear she has a matching unicorn thing like this.
Oh, cute. So
Yeah,
cool.
it'll be like these unicorn
Awesome.
headbands. Super
Yes, I'll
cute.
definitely email you guys about the group one this week because now that's our next one after this, or one more, then you guys again.
Yeah.
Alrighty, so we'll get started. So hi everyone, my name is Alexi. For those of you who don't know me or this is your first time joining an Instagram live of mine. So back in June, I started a project to raise awareness for invisible disabilities, that being disabilities that are not apparent to the human eye. This stemmed from my family's experiences with my sister, who also has invisible disabilities. And each week since June, I've been having different speakers come on, whether it's people that work in with this community, are a caregiver for someone with an invisible disability, people with invisible disabilities are in the neurodiverse community. I've had a ton of people come on that share really different experiences, and it's been awesome. So with that, I've been able to meet a lot of new, really awesome people that have been able to come on my lives. And one of them is Katie. So I will turn it over to her to introduce herself and then we'll get started.
That's good. I could hear you, but you were frozen for quite a while, so now I
Oh
can see.
no.
Really nice. But yeah, so basically I was diagnosed late with autism. So ever since then, like I really want to be an advocate and tell people, like what we get a lot of questions like what does autism look like?
Right.
And people think, that that's maybe like nonverbal and but really it's a spectrum. And there's a saying that goes like if you've met one person with autism, you've met like one person with autism. Everyone is so different, and I think that's one of the reasons why it's so difficult. Alexi, you're kind of going in and out, so hopefully you stay with us. But it's so difficult for professionals to really accurately diagnose, especially in the years that it is the most important, which is about 3 to 5 years old in that early developmental period. And
Right.
yeah, so but I really struggled like my in college, basically like my senior year of college. I grew up like kind of like a straight A student, but I started really struggling in school. Is that I was presumably this really smart girl, maybe a little quirky, but like they were like, you're college educated, like why are you struggling so much in employment? And that kind of so I emailed like an old therapist that I used to see, and she actually said like, well, I think that you've had autism for 2 years, but I just didn't think that it was important enough to tell you.
Okay.
Um, because she thought that I maxed out all services or that I was doing like just fine. We have really bad connection.
I can
Um,
see you and you're not breaking up on me. If
okay,
someone in the comments, can you let us know if you can see me and Katie okay or if one of us is
that's good.
breaking up? Because I see you fine and you get a little bit blurry sometimes, but you haven't left yet.
That's good. But
So
yeah,
if
so
someone
basically,
wants to let us know in the comments while we're
yeah,
chatting, just let us know.
I did a lot of jobs. Like I even like worked at a circus, and So yeah, and then so basically when I got the autism diagnosis, it was unofficial through a therapist, because she noticed a lot of things. One of the main things probably like I felt really relaxed in therapy. So maybe people who know me know that I like make eye contact, or I appear to make eye contact, but it was apparent in therapy that I never looked once at my therapist in the eye. And that goes back to masking. Women with autism can mask their symptoms. So when I get really, really comfortable with someone, I may not feel like the need to do all of those socially expected things like
Right.
eye contact. But yeah, so it was like she didn't have the ability to diagnose. So then I got registered with Center for Autism and Related Disabilities, which is a university-based system that every area in Florida you can access like your local university, and they helped me like get registered with something called vocational rehabilitation, which we have nationwide. So if you're struggling with employment, or don't really know like how to get employed, like vocational rehab is like a great resource.
Okay.
And they offer funding for certain things, like maybe they offer funding for you to go to school and get certified in X, Y, or Z to get a job. In my case, they helped me get an official diagnosis, even though I had to get two different opinions, because the first person dismissed me because she said verbal girls cannot have autism.
Interesting.
But yeah, so yeah, I worked my first successful job as a scanning clerk. I was scanning papers, and that was like my first successful job, and I worked there like 9 months. It was a temporary job, and then that kind of one thing led to another, and I now work at Cardinal Health, and I'm really liking it. And my company has like diversity, equity, and inclusion sector. I
That's
actually have cute like band that they gave
very
me,
cool.
diversity, equity, inclusion. So like I'm stimming with that, like because that's kind of fun.
Yeah.
So yeah, sometimes stimming might be not so obvious. So I think that's one of the reasons like why they say stimming is part of autism, and it may not be so easy to notice because people can do it under the table,
Right, of
and
course.
so that's why people can seem so low support needs but still have autism. So it's just yeah, kind of
Yeah.
interesting.
Do you mind if I ask you a quick question? So, I guess
Yeah.
now looking back on it, I don't know if these are conversations that you've had with family members. Do you notice anything like from your childhood or when, maybe your teen years that maybe you think like, wow, like why wasn't I diagnosed younger? Or do you feel like things maybe started becoming more apparent when you were older?
I think in a lot of ways when I was younger, for example, like as far as like, they talk about like, I think the term is parallel play, but that might be when you're not playing with it. But as far as the playground goes, as a child, I, was like a really big like reader,
Okay.
and that was seen as, oh, she's so quiet and intelligent, like she's gonna go places. But really I was hyperlexic, which is a term we use for people on the autism spectrum who have a really keen way of looking at words and understanding
Right.
words in a certain way. So I just picked up language actually faster, which is not always what we think about when we think about autism. And I engrossed myself in books because I think I learned a lot of social stuff that way. I didn't really know how to play with kids on the playground, so I would just read. So
Right.
actually, I wasn't playing with other kids my age. So I think that yeah, the fact that it was just seen as she's smart, and
Right.
but it's funny because that giftedness per se, I really struggled like later. So in autism, sometimes we see kids struggle very young, and then maybe they get treatment and it gets easier as they get older. In my case, it was, maybe I was seen as gifted when I was younger, and the older I got, the more challenges, the harder it was,
Makes
um,
sense.
because it's a developmental disability. So like, you're a little behind. Uh,
Yeah.
so,
So
but
is
yeah, I
it
think,
your therapist that
yeah,
brought it up to you
yeah.
to get diagnosed, or like was it a family conversation? Like how did you go about
It,
that part?
so basically it was like me because, I um like a lot of stuff was happening. Like I was very worried. Like I was like, I cannot hold a job. So like I'm gonna need some kind of services or like support, and I didn't even know like that. I didn't even know that services existed, that they
Right.
were out, that there's job clubs and job camps where they teach you like how to do a resume, and just they help you with interview. A lot of times it's the interview skills that we need help with. So, and then another little thing that, you know, like, oh, why wasn't I diagnosed earlier? Yeah, like a lot of sensory things, like when family members would make food for me, like they would try to put it in the microwave, and I would like get very upset.
Right.
Like sensitivity to like temperature. I didn't want to wear socks or shoes because I felt that they bothered me. So the janitors knew where to put my socks or shoes, like when I took them off.
Right.
And pick them up. And also like my grandparents wanted to take me to see like Christmas lights, and I was very upset about that resulted in some screaming and other things. And so you would be like, oh, why is a 4-year-old so upset about Christmas lights? And it's because it bothered me.
Right. So
That's like
when did you start noticing, or I guess, like when you were younger and you were having some of the reactions to different like sensory stimuli, how did you cope with that before knowing about your diagnosis? Like, what did you do that made you feel better?
yeah. I think I really lacked coping skills, honestly, is the honest to God truth about that. I mean, today I have like a really nice swing that serves as a really good regulation tool. I have
Awesome.
mood lights that I can like make my room like, you know, like visually appealing. Scents, like I have room sprays as far as like, you know, olfactory or whatever it's called. Candles. So yeah, I very much like now have my environment set up a specific way. Um, yeah.
That's awesome. So I wanted to ask you one of the questions that you sent me, and I really like this question. So what are some challenges that you feel that you have related to autism?
Yeah. So I will answer that in a second. So I think that one of the biggest things is like I'm an oversharer. So sometimes we think people with autism, I don't know, like you don't think of oversharing as, you know, there's a spectrum. So some people, they may not be good at conversation or may not want to talk with you as much. But I think that my inability to read social cues and stuff, like I want to make friends and stuff. So I just that's became a where I just share a lot of information, hoping like, oh, maybe like this will help me make friends. So oversharing, but there's like a time and a place to share stuff. And I think that sometimes finding that balance is really difficult. Not being too closed off, but not sharing too much. I think
Yeah.
when I was younger, my family jokes that maybe like I would have given my social security number to the folks on the plane if like I had known it. Um, they were like, they felt bad if they had to sit me next to people on airplanes because they're like, this person's gonna have to sit there for 3 hours and then, you know, listen to whatever stories I want to tell or talk about my
Right.
dog is. And also like just understanding the definition of a friend. I think it took me a long time to really understand like that whole aspect of relationships. Like what's a friend? What's a coworker? What is the difference between a friend and an acquaintance? I think that people generally understand that, and I struggled more so than the average person. Yeah,
Okay.
and just not reading body language and stuff. Even before my autism diagnosis, I was diagnosed with like nonverbal learning disorder. Yeah, and that just basically means like you're not good at reading cues and things like that. So,
Yeah. Have you
yeah.
found anything that helps you in those situations that are challenging, like with those challenges that you described? What has helped you?
Um, I think like most recently, like you know, I like to go to workout classes, and I have been like trying to like have conversations or tell people about all my travels or whatever it is that I'm interested in, because like people with autism can get very interested in whatever it is that they want to talk about,
Right.
and kind of like stuck on that topic. So like maybe someone's busy and like at a workout class or something, like they're not my friend, right? But I said I struggle with what's a friend and what's an acquaintance, yada yada. So sometimes it could be like a person at the grocery store, and I'll be like trying to tell them, like, I don't know, I get really a thought and I'm so interested, I want to tell them, and like they're busy, like they're on to the next thing, and that like telling myself to be quiet, like you don't need to like tell everyone everything, that's so fascinating.
Okay, so like a lot of self-talk for you.
Yeah, I guess like just like I guess what I'm working on lately is just trying to um not talk to everyone out and about. uh,
Yeah. There's a
sounds weird.
question for you here, Katie, in the comments that says, I think you might have said this earlier, but at what
Yeah.
age were you diagnosed?
So I was diagnosed literally like the year that I graduated college. It was really so I was like around like 23, 24 years old. Like really the struggle, like transition from, college to like transition to adulthood is what they really call it. And people with autism often struggle with transitions and stuff, so that comes as
Right.
like, so, 23.
Okay. Perfect. There is a question here too that I really liked, and you did briefly talk about it in the beginning in your introduction. You mentioned masking. Do you want to tell everyone a little bit about what that is and why we might see that a lot more with females with autism?
Yeah, so it's said that females with autism are just a little more aware, or like, just for some reason are just a little better at, hiding their autistic traits, and they just have a little bit of increased desire to maybe like form friendships compared to boys, and they'll go to greater lengths to accomplish this. Um, so like I said, like if stimming is like, it's under the table, like this would be considered like kind of like a stim, um, then that could be hidden, like under the table and you don't see it. And the same goes for things like eye contact. I can, maybe people say that I'm good at eye contact, but I really don't think so. I think that maybe I'm probably often looking at people, like in their forehead or somewhere, and they think that it's eye contact, but really I'm cheating.
Right.
Um, so kind of like that, something that it looks like you're doing really well at, but you're kind of compensating.
Great. That was a perfect explanation. Thank you. There's another question for you here that says, what triggered the journey to becoming diagnosed? And I think you might have talked a little bit about this, but what led
I
you to wanting to, seek
Yeah,
more and seek that
but
diagnosis?
basically it was really an employment struggle, quite honestly. I mean, I I guess we don't often want to talk about, people don't want to advertise like how many times they've been fired. But it's really important to note that I probably lost like 7 jobs, and that's significant, and that's a clinical significance when a psychologist is looking at someone's profile. So I was transitioning from college. I had the education and everything, but they were like, "What's missing?" And
Right.
down to probably misunderstandings with coworkers. And so yeah, the employment piece, and also I did have a little bit of what's called an autistic burnout my senior year of college. So due to this burnout, I went from being a really good student to, having to retake courses to get the diploma and graduate, which
Right.
I successfully did. Thank goodness.
Yeah.
And I think that getting the diagnosis really led to like the opportunity to disclose, which we hear so much about. Like, should you disclose your autism diagnosis? Should you not? And I think in my case, I don't know if I would have a job today if I didn't diagnose, if I didn't disclose. I
Right.
think that has been a saving grace in terms of, a lot of interactions with coworkers, because sometimes people misunderstand people.
Yeah, of
So
course.
when you could say, advocate for yourself and be like, I have a disability, and I'm sorry you misunderstood, but this is probably why.
Yeah.
Um, so
So, a question for you, and if this is like a difficult question to answer, just let me know and I have some of the ones here again from the stuff that you sent me. Have
yeah.
you ever been in a situation with work or with school where disclosing has caused a challenge for you? Like maybe someone didn't give you that like equality that you deserved after disclosing your diagnosis?
Um, at my current job, no, disclosure has been the best thing that I have ever had or done. But in the past, I was in college. I was working a job while going to school, and it was like a teacher's assistant. Like you didn't even need a teaching degree. I don't know, but I was going through the training process, and I guess we needed to take an exam, which I was fine with, and we had been studying. But I generally got extra time on exams.
Okay.
Since sixth grade, I had an IEP since the sixth grade, and um, I had told them, hey, like I wasn't diagnosed with autism at the time, so I didn't even say that. But I was like, I knew that I knew I did. I always knew I had some kind of disability, no matter what it was going to be.
Right.
I have a disability, and the very next day they walked me into the office and were like, "You're fired."
Oh my
So
God.
hard to prove, but it's like we can only imagine that maybe they fired me because I had said I had a disability. They didn't want to work with that.
Right. And how did that make you feel and what did you do?
I think at the time I really questioned, like, I'll never disclose again, or disclosure, that was my expectation of what disclosure got you. And
Right.
now I have had, sometimes it takes a variety of experiences to really have a good decision making ability. And now my experience is I work for a company that has, a diversity program. Yeah, so with working for my company now, I think that disclosure is a good thing. I think you need to find the right company that works for you, and we need to stop asking, am I good enough for that company? And we need to ask, is that company good enough for me? Do they
Yeah,
have education, and do they have the right leaders and people that are going to want to that see the benefits in diversity?
I
Because if
agree.
I would move on and not work there.
That's
So
awesome. This leads me to the perfect segue to ask you this question. I have learned so many amazing things about you since we became friends over Instagram.
yeah.
And I am just mind blown with all the things that you've accomplished and the things that you've shared with me. And I want you to share that with everybody else because you are honestly so cool and you've achieved so much. And I want everyone to know that about you too.
Yeah, so one of the things I'm like most proud of, I suppose, by the way, I can't see you now, but hopefully you'll come back.
I can
Um,
see you and I hear you perfectly, so don't worry about it.
good. Yeah, I one of the a lot of times people with autism have things that they're very passionate about. In my case, I was very passionate about theater and arts advocacy. And the funding of the arts, often Congress likes to cut funding for arts education. So I went to speak on Capitol Hill when I was 16 at the National Endowment for the Arts press conference. And therefore, I was awarded the Miami Herald Silver Knight Award for like my project and my community service. Yeah, and I also love to travel. That's like a fun thing. I'm going to Costa Rica soon. So yeah,
And
and
I
I'm
think if I remember correctly, you're 5 out of 7 continents so
yeah,
far, right?
yeah.
Super cool.
I want to go to all 7 continents by the time I'm 30. And often, as far as work goes, a lot of times it's common in the employment world that, you know, employers will look at like someone who travels as, oh, like, I don't know if I can trust this person to stay at my company, or like, are they reliable? Like, question like their reliability, their loyalty, a bunch of things. But actually, like, travel is, I think it's better than college. It's like it's the best education I've ever received. You
That's
learn so
amazing.
much in different cultures, and it makes you a really great leader when you can understand, like, going back to that diversity topic, when you can understand different cultures, you've been there and you've seen their culture and you've experienced and talked to local people, you can come back here, and America's a melting pot, and really understand diversity better. And then, so yeah,
Awesome.
helps you understand diversity, which helps you in the employment world and working with other people, and open-minded and accepting all that. So
Of course, there is another question for you here. This one's about your travels. So which continents have you visited and what has been your favorite place to travel so far?
Oh boy. So let's go with the ones that I haven't been to. So I have not been to Australia and I have not been to Antarctica. So all the other ones I've been to. And my favorite place, well, I spent a month in Peru, so that has a special place in my heart because I saw 7 different cities and I basically saw the whole country, and it's just a lot of memories there. But also, I really like Switzerland because I loved the mountains. And yeah, so.
Awesome. So what have you done or what has helped you traveling, like related to your disability? Are there things that have made traveling easier for you? Maybe, getting things prepared ahead of time or like having a travel buddy? Like what has helped you feel comforted while traveling in terms of autism?
Yeah, I think that a lot of people will be like, oh, it's an assumption people with autism love routine and things to be familiar. So maybe it comes as a surprise that I travel so much, but it does come with its challenges. Like I remember in Peru, I was there a whole month, and actually, I really pushed myself, and I think pushing yourself is important. I had days in Peru, like I cried because I was having, I missed a routine. Like I was really struggling with missing a routine actually. But I did it. I hiked the Inca Trail for 4 days solo, and
That's
but I
amazing.
remember other times where I was going to study abroad because I studied abroad in Spain. And right before I left, I was in college at the time working with that therapist who actually had uh, diagnosed me unofficially with autism. And so one of the things she probably noted was when I was going to Spain, it was like a lot of emotions, and I got really like anxious, like more anxious than usual, like before that transition, because for one, it's a transition, two, it's out of my routine. So yeah, I think that the challenges would just be like a little bit more of anxiety, and often like my mom might help me with some of the sequential things, like sequencing can be hard for people on the spectrum. So like just sequencing out a trip, if I need help with the plan, when do I get the plane, like what time, and when do I get the bus. So sometimes I just have like an assistant, I guess, and then
Right.
once I like help me, then I can go through like all the steps. So sometimes we
Of
might
course.
be getting all the steps together, and then we could follow this.
Yeah. Do you travel? This is a question for you and something I wanted to ask you too. When you travel, do you travel with friends and family or do you typically go alone or a mix of
Yeah,
both?
I have gone to Italy with family, and I've been to Alaska with family, I suppose, some places in the States, but mostly a majority of my travel has been solo. Yeah, most of it has been solo. And my first trip was when I was 16 to Thailand to work with elephants, and that I was a minor, so I went with like kind of a program, like a chaperone, and a couple other girls. But for the most part, solo travel. Yeah.
That's awesome. So something that I know that you really wanted to talk about today and something I was really happy to talk about today was your dating life and
Oh,
dating on the spectrum.
say that.
So why don't you tell us all about it?
Yeah, so dating on the spectrum can be kind of hard. I think one of the most important things is like a lot of people on the spectrum, they might start dating later. It's a little bit harder for us to understand like all the social cues and stuff. And just, I just, as far as, like, oh, the why wasn't I diagnosed earlier? What have I noticed? I think that I noticed like a lot of my peers really understood dating way at a younger age, like middle, high school, college. People were dating, and that just wasn't on my radar.
Right.
Um, and then I had got the diagnosis of autism, and then I went to autism social groups, and I met my first boyfriend who had autism. He was like, we're both 25, and so yeah, so I dated someone with autism, and then when that didn't work out, like I dated my neighbor who was neurotypical. So then, in the first case, as far as disclosing, I guess that's a good topic to talk about. Is like, you know, um, do we disclose like your autism diagnosis like when you're dating? And in the first instance, I didn't need to because it was already known. And in the second instance, when I dated my neighbor, I, we went to like a beach volleyball event, and then, we sat on the beach after, and I told him, like, I have autism, and I was like, what do you know about autism? And he's like, not much. I've heard of the name, and that's pretty much it.
Right.
And I was like, does that change anything? And he's like, well, it changes some things, but not really. I kind of got like both answers. And, it didn't last too long after that. So part of me kind of wonders, if I had not disclosed, if that would have gone on longer. But at the end of the day, I think that you should disclose at your own pace.
Right.
But definitely you want to disclose sooner than rather than later, because especially if you want to, maybe one day move in with someone you're dating, they're gonna find out eventually. And I know this not because I've ever lived with someone that I dated, but because I had a roommate in college before my autism diagnosis who
Okay.
lived with me in a room, and she was like, do you have a disability or something? Like, something's really weird about you, but I just can't put my finger on it. And
Okay.
liked me because of that. But once I had an IEP at the time. So I was like, I have a disability. Well, I didn't know I had autism, but I said,
Right.
hey, and that was a kind of disclosure. And once I disclosed, she was like, we were really good friends after that. She was actually very accepting, and wanted to be my friend. Um,
Right.
so
Is
yeah, I
that
think,
hard for you that, and I know I spoke about this in some other lives, is it hard for you when maybe people shift their kindness when you disclose? Like, do you feel like they should just be kind with or without knowing? Or does it not really seem to like bother you regardless of when the kindness starts? You know what I mean?
yeah, I guess, I mean, that's a complicated question, I suppose, but like, I guess you're kind of getting at, shouldn't people always assume kindness? You should always be kind to
Yeah.
others. You never know like what they're going through, or like what they're struggling with, or if they have a difference that's different to you. But I don't really blame them, I suppose. People can have a lot of questions, and there can be misunderstandings, and I know that that's kind of how the world goes. Um, so if I disclose and then they're not kind, then I kind of don't like that. But if I disclose
Yeah.
if they're kind, then I think I think it's fine. You know,
Yeah.
I look at it, I'm so happy that that gave you the answers that you're looking for. And yeah, Unicorn Children's Foundation, our slogan is hashtag get caught being kind. So definitely a good topic here. But yeah, I mean, if that gives them the answer they're looking for, then I'm happy that would give them what they needed to be friends with me.
Sure. So when you started dating, did you know, like, did you come to a moment in your life where you're like, I'm ready to start dating people? Or was it just like you met somebody that made you feel ready to start dating? Like, what was that like for you?
Yeah, actually, prior to meeting my boyfriend who's on the autism spectrum after getting my autism diagnosis, I thought like, oh my God, like I'm 25 years old, like, I don't think that I'll ever date. And it just kind of happened, I suppose, where I need a lot of directness. And I think that's where I missed a lot of dating opportunities, is because no one really comes up to you and says, hey, I like you. And
Right.
my girlfriend. It's often a lot more subtle than that.
Yeah.
And so I think
Those
that
social cues are harder to,
yeah, the social cues. And I just thought I wouldn't start dating up till that point, because it's like, you see us in the age of social media, we want to remember like not to compare. I would say don't compare yourself to others, is what I've learned. Because a lot of people I know, peers my age, like, they're married or they're having children. um they're way more advanced in their developmental level of dating, where I'm just trying to figure out, like, how do I know if a guy is interested? That's
yeah.
my skills are much lower in that realm. So when you have a disability, I would say, like, don't compare, because I've heard of stories where people are in their 30s, 40s, or whatever. Like, it can happen in your own time if
Yeah.
that's what. So.
I agree. There's a question here that asks, how old were you when you had your first boyfriend?
Yeah, so I was like, I'm 26 now, so I was 25. It was not too long ago. Like, I'm currently single.
Okay.
But I did go on a date yesterday. And I thought that was interesting because you never know where you might meet someone
Yeah.
because um, I'm not really dating apps right now. It's just kind of exhausting, especially for someone who's neurodiverse to go through all the dating apps and like the small talk and all that. Um, but I got locked out of my apartment and I had a dead phone and I went to play my community kickball game that I do on Wednesday nights. And after kickball, they often go to this restaurant called Township. So I'm sitting there, like, just staring at the football screen, like, so bored because my phone was dead. So we agreed that he would meet me there with my spare key. So I'm waiting there for him. And this guy came up to me. He noticed I was unoccupied and started talking. At the end, he's like, well, I really like talking to you and I really like to meet you again. Can I get your number? And so that is a cue enough where it's like, I really like talking to you. Am I going to see you again? Can I have your
Right.
number? So that's enough information. So I guess it doesn't always have to be like, like, yeah, something like that. I need like a verbal cue, not some like, I don't know what the nonverbal cues would, but nonverbal cues generally don't work. So
Yeah. No, I
I'm
get that. I get what you
just,
mean. Hey, it's hard for anyone to pick up on nonverbal cues, especially with romantic relationships. So
yeah,
I'm sure that it definitely serves as a challenge for you being in the neurodiverse community, trying to pick up on those really subliminal things that people like to do when they like someone and don't want to say it flat out. But I really like this one question that was in what you sent me as well. And I really feel like it's a good question now that we're coming towards the end of our time here tonight.
for sure.
What is a way that you would like people to know how they can support somebody with autism or a disability in their life?
Yeah, I think generally it's just like every person's different. Like I guess for me sometimes I need downtime. So like I try to schedule a day in the month or every few weeks where I have a Sunday or Saturday where I'm not driving my car. I'm just gonna stay home and read a book or like self-care is important for anyone. So just ask the autistic person in your life like what kind of self-care they need and if you can support them in that. So
Awesome. I love it. Is there something you would like to tell everyone as your final words on this segment, like a takeaway message, maybe something you want people to know about you or about treating others with disabilities, anything at all?
yeah, I think as far as like, for professionals out there, like women with autism are commonly misdiagnosed. So if we think that there's other diagnoses out there, such as like bipolar or like ADHD or any of those other things, we want to look at, the full picture. We want to really consider autism because I think professionals, when people are younger, they may have like meltdowns and stuff, and professionals will look at that as like, uh, oh, this person's like bipolar, but really they might be autistic. So,
Right.
yeah, and just I guess we'll go with Unicorn Children's Foundation's slogan to end off the night, which is "Get caught being kind." So, I guess just go out there and maybe find an organization like Friendship Journey where you can go and volunteer and be friends with people with disabilities or things like that. And yeah, just do something kind. Yeah, and yeah, like you said, treat everyone with kindness.
I love it. You did so awesome tonight, Katie, and I'm so proud of you and everything that you stand for and everything that you've accomplished. You are seriously one of the coolest people I have ever met. Um, Katie, we'll be back on here with Unicorn Children's Foundation, which I know we didn't get to talk about much tonight, but they are a nonprofit organization that Katie is the junior board member for. So she will be back with us with her group, which I'm really excited about in
Yeah,
2 weeks.
and
We're
I
going in
will.
February. Here's her unicorn head. This is where Katie does a lot of work that she did not speak about today. And one of them is that she is a junior board member, and maybe she can talk a little bit more about that when we're on with them. But yes, so we'll be back with them in the first weekend of February. Next week will be a mental health type segment. So that will be really cool. Just some comments for you, Katie. This has been amazing. Thank you for sharing. Keep doing what you're doing. You are amazing. Thank you for sharing, Katie. You rock, Katie. Clap, clap, clap. Heart, heart, heart. Tons of people cheering you on down here. So thank you so much, Katie. You did such a good job.
Thanks.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great night. Good night, Katie. I'll talk to you after this.